Passenger is the brand new horror movie released this past weekend, and if you're just like me and saw that neat little teaser trailer that didn't give much away, and you were sitting there thinking, holy shit, May of 2026 is going to be incredible. 2026 of May started off with Hokum, then the beautiful movie Obsession. Then I thought this movie was going to be a hit sandwiched in between the Backrooms, and I'm like, May of 2026 is going to be historic. And if you were thinking, just like I was, really excited to see 4 out of 4 amazing horror movies, well, you might want to pump the brakes on that one here, buddy, because I'm going to tell you right now, maybe 3 out of 4 movies for the May of 2026 isn't all that bad here. With that said, welcome back to ZakIsCinema, everybody. If you have nobody to talk to about movies, specifically have nobody to talk to about the movie Passenger, you have finally found the right place and the right home, so please consider joining here because I have nobody to talk to about this movie, so I'm going to start talking to you. So let's jump into the review section for Passenger, starting with the positives or just the things that I enjoyed most about this movie. And I'm going to put a little bit of an asterisk here because this is going to be my positives with an asterisk, or I guess you could just say positive mixed, slightly leaning more mixed here. I usually don't start reviews by immediately roasting the movie, but unfortunately, I really just found this movie Passenger to feel like a random collection of jump scare sequences wrapped around one of the most slowest and most mundane stories I've seen in a horror movie in quite some time. That said, I'm keeping this, like I said, my mixed positive section because I do think a handful of these scare scenes are genuinely entertaining, very creatively directed, and this really felt like a collection of short films wrapped around one of the most boring stories ever. And I thought the teaser did a really great job at marketing the movie because it didn't show really anything. It basically just showed the opening intro to this movie, and I thought that is such a perfect way to market a horror movie. Kind of gave me the vibe that this is going to be leaning more into those jump scares types of scares and horror, maybe a little bit more of that Insidious kind of vibe or Lights Out or Smile. I thought it would be something like that because the teaser trailer really didn't show all that much. And this teaser basically uses the opening of the film here, and in the opening I thought it was a pretty cool sequence where two friends pull over on the side of the road. One has to use the bathroom. After using the bathroom, he comes back and finds his friend completely missing out of the driver's seat. All the car doors and trunk is wide open. He kind of searches the area, doesn't see his friend, gets back into the car, and then all of a sudden his friend is just thrown through the windshield of the vehicle. His friend starts panicking and freaking out and just takes the car and starts driving. He is speeding down this road after what just occurred to his friend or to his buddy there. He is driving down the road and then passes this strange, creepy looking man on the side of the road, passes it, but then he keeps going down the road, but then is like passing around the same little bend area, passing that creepy dude on the side of the road. And it has this kind of like looping concept, and it does it a couple times until he drives past the guy one more time, and then all of a sudden you get this really neat jump scare of the demon guy sitting in the passenger seat of this guy's vehicle. And I thought that was pretty effective. I mean, pretty predictable, but, you know, a fun kind of different type of horror experience. And I feel like if you liked the teaser like I did, there are definitely moments throughout the movie that capture that same energy. And a lot of the scare scenes have this more fun haunted house, haunted hayride kind of attraction vibe to it, where they're more focused on the visual tension and creative setups to the jump scares rather than the story. And that's why I'm kind of keeping this in my mix, because I think the problem is once you get past some of those moments, you realize why the trailer barely showed anything at all, because outside of these scattered horror sequences, the movie really has nothing else going on for it. But since this is my mixed positive section, I dislike the overall story, which we're about to get into, but I can still admit that the scare scene centered around it was an interesting idea. The opening sequence is very solid. There's a couple other standout sequences. For example, there's a scene in a parking lot when one of our characters named Maddie is walking towards the van that her and Tyler own. And every time she gets closer to this van, she hears these loud running footsteps behind her until she turns around, sees no one there. But then when she turns back around, she is like 20, 30 feet back away from the van, does that a couple times and keeps getting further and further away from the van, but still hearing those footsteps. It's simple, it's creative, and gives that effective feeling of paranoia and disorientation, in my opinion. And probably my favorite scene in the movie is when Tyler and Maddie kind of stop on their road trip and set out this outdoor movie theater experience in the middle of the woods. And all of a sudden, they kind of hear or think somebody else is with them in the woods. I think some of the lights start shutting off, and then all of a sudden, you see this figure behind the projector screen slowly inching through the projector screen until one of the characters, Tyler, rips down the projector screen and then he's completely gone. But then you hear creaks and trees and branches snap. You hear the demon guy kind of walking around, and they're trying to find a light source. So one guy has a flashlight, and I believe Maddie, the character of Maddie, takes the projector they were watching the movie on to try to flash the light around to see where this demon guy was. And I thought that created a nice visual aesthetic, because the movie that they're watching is still kind of faintly projecting on the woods and surrounding environment around them. And the particular scene that they're watching in this movie has a lot of characters like looking and having these reactions. So as they're kind of looking for this demon figure, the movie they're watching also looks like it's like kind of looking around with the characters as well. And I thought that was a super creative sequence, and one of the few times it just felt like unique, and there was some bit of tension there. And speaking of that scene where they use creative lighting, I also like some of the other lighting choices in the film. The movie often uses car headlights, brake lights, and blinking, flashing, warning turn signals really well to kind of hide the demon partially, or have him kind of flashing there for characters to barely notice, while still keeping him somewhat visible enough to get that tension kind of going. But again, it's disappointing because I enjoyed some of those sequences, but my biggest mixed feeling also comes from the story wrapped around it. All of these scenes feel like really, really strong 5 to 10 minute YouTube horror shorts that you'd see on YouTube and be like, holy shit, that was really good. I hope that creator can go off to do something full feature length one day. But if this had just been a collection or one or two creepy road trip horror shorts on YouTube, I think I would have enjoyed this significantly more, because outside of the occasional creative scare, this movie has almost nothing else supporting it, which leads me into my next section. So let's start talking about the negatives, or the things that I just hated about this movie. And like I've mentioned a couple of times, there's a big reason why the teaser trailer only showed what they showed, because at this core, this movie is secretly about a couple who is named Maddie and Tyler. They decide to sell everything, move out of their Brooklyn-based apartment and live that van lifestyle, man, and travel across the country. And the demon starts attaching to their vehicle and following them at nighttime, and that is the entire movie. Just characters driving, setting up a new jump scare scene, driving somewhere else, setting up a new jump scare scene. And for some people, I could see maybe where that'd be interesting, especially if you are a part of van life culture, or have a dream of that, or have already done something like that. But personally, to me, I'm just not interested in something like that. I'd love to take a van trip, but maybe, 2-3 weeks at the very most. And I found this to be just one of the longest, most exhausting 90-minute horror movies I've seen in a while. This felt like an over 2.5 hour movie. Like, this thing was really, really dragging to me. And I didn't go into it expecting this to be an all-time favorite, but I definitely didn't expect it to be as mundane and boring as it was. And I think the biggest issue here is the characters themselves. Tyler and Maddie are this couple that are supposed to be having this strained relationship where Tyler is very much obsessed with this new van lifestyle, while Maddie clearly regrets the decision and feels very trapped in this relationship and this van lifestyle. But the problem is these characters and actors have almost no chemistry and very, very little personality outside of talking about their van life experience. That's basically every conversation here: living in the van, traveling, one character happy, one character unhappy, and arguing about the van while a creepy old demon guy is chasing them. And to me, there's just nothing emotionally compelling about this couple whatsoever. And even though I felt bad for Maddie at times, just sympathizing with her, knowing what it's like to be stuck in a relationship you're just kind of over with, I really didn't care if they stayed together. It just, felt like a quick conversation they could have and then go their separate ways. So kind of creating drama out of nowhere. And this movie spends a surprising amount of time focused on this van life and van life community. And those scenes are very painful to sit through. There's a campground sequence where all the van life people and couples get together to hang out in each other's vans, and people start like square dancing and hanging around this parking lot fire. And it feels more or less like a horror movie and more like a commercial for people who idolize van life, while also showing the warning signs that there could be demons on the road. And to me, it was just even more frustrating when they get to this campground, or this van life campground, that this is where we meet the very loving horror cliche old lady character that just exposition dumps all the demons lore. I mean, you got the woman from Insidious. It's that type of character trope that we've seen in almost every other movie ever made. And this whole old woman just constantly explains the lore behind the demon, and there's nothing else much to that. And this is where the movie also introduces the hobo code. And yes, that's an actual phrase used in the film. The old lady and people at the campground start explaining that apparently old people or old travelers use these symbols and warnings to help people avoid this specific demon that attaches itself to drivers at night. But the movie never cares to explain anything outside of the rules. Like, it doesn't explain anything in meaningful ways to me. Like, why does the demon target travelers specifically? Why only at night? Why does stopping matter but not at other times, because you're not supposed to stop? And why are some people safe while they're parked at these campsites while other characters aren't? Like, there's so many questions, and the movie introduces all these rules but never develops any of them to really make any sense. You're just supposed to kind of accept them at this point. And on top of that, I guess I could have looked past some of that if the demon was pretty creative, scary, and interesting, but he's not very memorable. He mostly looks like a mix of between that old man from The Conjuring 2 and the tall man from Phantasm, but without any of the uniqueness or intimidation factor that those other two characters had. So he's just very, very flat and forgettable here. And the character decisions in this movie become incredibly frustrating, specifically with Maddie and Tyler. For example, there's a point where Tyler gets this flat tire at night, and he already has the demon lore rules explained to him. And despite the movie repeatedly telling us not to drive after dark, he immediately gets out to change the tire instead of just staying in the van until morning. And one of the rules is also not to stop or pull over. So it seemed like best case scenario, just stay there till morning, don't get out and stop, and don't keep going. So the movie constantly creates this danger by making the characters act stupid, and it's just so cliche and frustrating. And on top of that, the ending completely falls apart for me. The solution is basically for Maddie to figure out about this church, long lost church in the middle of the desert, where she learns about this church, and they're driving there and all of a sudden the demon shows up. She at one point rams her van into the demon, and the demon's like holding on to the hood of her car, and she is flying him through this church, almost like the glider sequence in the first Raimi Spider-Man movie with Goblin and Spider-Man. Maddie's just driving him through this church up until the point she hits this statue and knocks over. There's a sharp pole. She rams him one more time, and just he gets protruded with this religious statue's pole and burns and goes to hell, but then also lets off this huge explosion. So there's this huge like fire attack in the third act. It just completely goes off the rails. And the second this happened, all intimidation factor just completely felt abandoned and disappeared. My brother and I, who watched this together, were genuinely laughing at the climax just because of how goofy and nonsensical it became. And ultimately, Passenger here just felt like one of those generic, forgettable January, February horror dump releases, but somehow it ended up being released in May, sandwiched between Hokum, Obsession, and hopefully the Backrooms will be good. And I guess that's why I was anticipating this to be good, because I'm like, oh my God, they must have confidence releasing it in this really compact month for horror. But no, it somehow just slipped through the cracks, and they dumped it here in May, which was super frustrating because this movie is not all that good. Because I would say overall, Passenger has a handful of genuinely creative and entertaining scare sequences, but they're buried inside a painfully dull road trip story with weak characters, messy lore, and an unintentionally goofy finale that completely kills all its tension. So for my rating for this movie, this is a movie personally. I'm never going to watch this again. I'm never going to rent it again. I'm not going to beg my friend who has this illegal Plex server to torrent this movie. I don't need to see it. If you were interested in the teaser, please, for the love of God, maybe wait for streaming. If it's on a streaming service you're already paying for, it's worth a watch. Maybe some people will get more mileage out of it than I did, but to me, I'm never going to watch this movie again, never going to pay money for this movie again, because extremely disappointing here. I'm hoping Backrooms can kind of bring us home for the month of May here, because it's been an incredible month so far for new horror releases. But you guys have my thoughts here. I appreciate anybody watching. Please down below, let me know. Did you see Passenger? Let me know what you think. Did you agree with me? Completely disagree with me? Are you somewhere in the middle? I'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings. But that's about it. I appreciate anybody watching my videos. It means so much to me. So thanks again. And yeah, look forward to more ZakIsCinema coming very soon.